Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Grand Slam Journey podcast, where I, together with my guests, discuss various topics related to finding our passion and purpose, maximizing our potential, sports, life after sports, and transitioning from one chapter of our lives to the next. My today's episode is with Erin Cunningham. Erin is a social impact executive who has been creating magic by integrating partnerships and programs that are more than sum of their parts, with the most prominent nonprofits in the country, such as the YMCA, Boys and Girls Club of America, as well as the largest corporations in the world, such as Microsoft, Walmart, Coca-Cola, Gap, CVS, AT&T, and Best Buy. She also worked with the World Economic Forum and Uplink to create a global challenge elevating tech solutions to support young people in their mental health. Erin currently works at RecycleBalls, which is how her and I met. Well, we actually met during our leadership program. And for whatever reason, conversation with Erin came quite naturally. I'm not sure why, but later on during my podcast, I realized she's also a former tennis player, and since she was young, she's been looking for ways to create a change and scale social impact and sustainability in the world. RecycleBalls is a national player-driven initiative to reuse and recycle all tennis balls. They are the first organization in US tennis history with a large-scale collection solution for all play tennis balls in this country. If you are like me, you may have hit hundreds, thousands, or millions of tennis balls in your life, and you may have not put a deep thought into what happens to the ball when it's done serving you. Is there a second life for it? If you listen to this podcast, you will find out all about the life of a tennis ball and how you can prolong it and create a circular economy. This episode talks about Erin's journey and upbringing, playing tennis, her path to scaling social impact programs. We talk about RecycleBalls and its mission. Why should we recycle tennis balls? And if this episode resonates with you, Erin has some great tips on how you can help and get involved. And last but not least, don't forget to recycle your tennis balls when you're done with them. Find your passion and be intentional about the change you want to create in this world. If you enjoyed this episode, I want to ask you to please do two things. One, please share with someone you believe may enjoy it as well, and especially with a fellow tennis player. And two, please consider leaving a review on Apple Podcast or Spotify. I would highly appreciate your time investment into submitting a review. It will help me greatly. Earth Day is on Saturday, April 22nd, so I thought this is a great episode to think about sustainability and how to do some of the little things that can help the planet, especially if you're a tennis player. And now, enjoy the listen. Hello, Erin. Welcome to Grand Slam Journey podcast. How are you? How's your Friday?
It's fantastic. I'm so happy to be here and glad that it's Friday. So headed into the weekend.
Yes.
Yeah.
Friday is always, I think, typically my most fun day. You have still 2 full days ahead where you don't have to do anything. So usually we accomplish quite a bit during the week. So you feel productive.
Yes.
We met during our leadership training and you reached out regarding a mission that you're now driving and scaling that is related to tennis. So I'm super excited to have you on the podcast because many listeners are friends of mine and are in the realm of tennis that are still hitting balls or know me as a tennis player. And when you and I first connected, I had no clue how difficult it could be to recycle balls or the harm of tennis balls. So we're going to talk a lot about that, about your mission and saving the planet. But before we go to all of this fantastic conversation, please introduce yourself to our listeners.
Absolutely. My name's Erin Cunningham, and I'm the executive director at a nonprofit that works on sustainability, specifically in recycling tennis balls. So RecycleBalls has been around since 2017, and I joined the organization in late 2022. I've spent a career in social impact projects, working in youth development, community development, and health. And so this is an interesting and exciting pivot in my career to be working in the sustainability space. And I have been absolutely loving it. Like you said, we met during a leadership training, and that was a fantastic experience. And I got to meet some incredible people just like you. And I've been listening to the Grand Slam journey, and I have been so impressed with your podcast and with the stories that you tell. And now I can't believe that I'm on the show and have my own episode. This is exciting.
Of course. Yeah, thank you. I think you have beautiful convergence of mission-driven company and scaling a great cause. And really looking at your LinkedIn profile, it seems that is something that has driven you ever since you were young, finding mission, finding things in perhaps mostly the nonprofit space and contributing to, I would say, sometimes the less privileged ones in many different areas to create an impact. And I'm always curious how we grow up and how our upbringing shape us. I strongly believe that really who we are and how we grow up shapes most of our human experience as we grow through life. I think the first 20 years or 25 years makes us the core of our humans. So I'm curious if you could share a little bit about your upbringing and really the path to this area and finding your passion.
Absolutely. It's funny that you said that. I grew up in the 80s in a small town in California. And it was some of the first times that I think that they were probably teaching about environmental impact in school. And so we learned about the hazards of aerosol sprays and not to litter, because that was the conversation back then. And so I was in third grade when, for my birthday party, I thought instead of doing something like Chuck E. Cheese or something fun, I got my friends together and we did a trash cleanup at the lot that was about half a mile from my house. I thought it was a blast. We picked up all the trash, but we also have made such an adventure out of it. And I think that that's one of the things that throughout my upbringing and my career, I've always looked for this moment that you can turn into an adventure and get the learning and the fun and the excitement out of every single experience that you have. And so I was in that same vein, I was incredibly involved in my high school activities, but that was shaped by living in a really small town where there was only one high school. And so all of the kids that I knew kind of growing up were all in the same school. And I was a tennis player for my varsity tennis team. We were the Warriors, and played in the Southern California League, which was super competitive.
Yes, yes.
So I had a great time. And I think that that's kind of where I got my love of the sport and got a first introduction to what it means to be on a team. And so I've had the opportunity through my career to touch a lot of different causes and live in a lot of different places. And so I've worked for the Boys and Girls Club. I've worked for the YMCA. I worked for a small business, Morton Sonoma Springs up by Santa Rosa. And the theme that has always run through that is, how do we, as human beings, connect with each other and create a community, a sense of belonging that is supportive of each other? Mm-hmm. And so whether I was working in aquatics, which is running swimming pools or, water parks, or teaching swim lessons, all the way up to working at the national office for the Boys and Girls Club, where we're working on scaling quality improvement efforts and character building activities throughout the country. And so I've had that thread of social impact run not just through my career, but kind of through my entire life. And you're right, my upbringing really had a lot to do with that. And so I grew up with my parents and my younger brother, who was both very close to me and also a pain in my rear end most of the time. But he and I are still pretty close. And so we've gotten a chance to have all kinds of adventures together as a family and really built a solid foundation for me to feel like I always had a place that was home, but also be able to live and move all over the country. My whole family still lives in California. I live in Louisville, Kentucky, by way of Idaho, Oregon, Georgia, North Carolina. So I've gotten a chance to live in a lot of different places and really built that strong foundation through having a family that was always supportive of my career goals and me going off on adventures.
The drive to social impact, it just seems so strong early on. Were you always aware of it? Or do you remember, was there a moment that influenced you? Was it, you said you learned about it in school, but it seems like one thing learning about it, and there's a second thing to really have this drive and intention to start something. Seems like you had that feeling and you acted on it. Do you remember some specific moment or person, team that may have fueled this passion and influenced you in that direction?
You know, my very first job was actually at a small business up by Santa Rosa, and it had been around for hundreds of years. It was a Warm Springs. And one of the things that was really cool about that business was that it didn't matter kind of how many owners had come and gone or what the current focus of the company was. It was a place that people congregated. They came to swim. They came to have picnics and barbecues. And I ran a small water company while I was there. But the whole community really rallied around that particular business as a community center and a place to belong. And I think that that was one of the things, maybe not so much from the social impact side, but of this idea that people are looking for a place to belong and they want good things for their community, and they're willing to put forward effort and sacrifice to be able to have that sense of belonging and those good things for their community. And so when I got a chance to do some volunteering with the YMCA, and I saw that there are organizations that, unlike the business that I was working for, where it happened kind of by accident, this community had rallied around, there were places that were actually building that within communities that were intentional about creating spaces where people could be a part of something special and find their own place wherever they were, and that they could get support and encouragement and have a safety net, if you will, on their own journey. I think that that's what really inspired me. There are all of these places that people come together and build community, and that I wanted to be a part of organizations that were really intentional about that. And so that has really been the cornerstone of my career. And as I build on that idea of belonging and community, I also developed these skills in collaboration and partnership development and the behind the scenes of what it takes to not only believe in building community or a sense of belonging, but also the practices and the organizational development side of actually supporting that community. I don't know that there was like one specific moment that I thought, this is what I want to be doing, but this gradual understanding of there are places that are really intentional about the things that I believe in, and those are the organizations that I want to be part of. And it's one of the reasons why I'm with RecycleBalls, because there's this whole community around tennis that is passionate, and tennis players are really looking to do things that help the environment, and they want to belong to that community that is having fun and being healthy and doing good things all at the exact same time.
Yeah. And how cool it is that you shared you started tennis. Number of years later, you found a job that actually converged the two, right? Tennis was your sport early on, and now you're working with a whole bunch of tennis players and country clubs and tennis clubs to further the cause. So I love how life sometimes turns out. We couldn't probably plan it any other way if we even could imagine that, right?
That's absolutely right. The kind of circular nature of this is not lost on me, particularly because now I'm working in the circular economy, and it just feels like things keep coming right back around, not necessarily back to the beginning, but for these new beginnings and new starts. Like you said, that convergence of things that you can't expect and yet really bring a depth to experiences.
Yeah. One thing I'm curious is you say tennis, and maybe I had a different experience because tennis growing up was more of an individualistic sport for me. We do have teams in Europe, but they're seasonal. They don't seem to create the same sort of belonging that even I experienced in college tennis. I think it was a different atmosphere being part of a true team more in college that we're trying to build than earlier on in my life. So I'm wondering how you assessed that even back then. Did you feel that difference, or maybe you had a different team in tennis? Because that to me seemed almost like few different worlds, being there alone by yourself when you were on the court versus that social impact that seemed like drove you towards having a group, having a team, building a mission, contributing with a community. So that to me seemed a little bit of two different things.
I think that that's a really interesting observation, that tennis can be a very different sport for different people. So I was, what I would say, really lucky in that the two coaches at my high school, there was the individual competition side, and we were always in competition on the team individually. We had a ladder. Every single week we ranked across the team, a very similar experience that I'm sure many of the people listening to the podcast have had as well, right? But there was always time that we were encouraged to be together outside of playing, that we were open about areas where we were trying to grow and develop, and we were encouraged to support each other in that growth and development. Also, our school played against other schools. And so even though I was an individual playing against another individual or in a doubles with two people, either we beat the other school or we didn't beat the other school. And so I think that led into this idea of everybody brings their own strengths, their individual parts, what makes them who they are to a team, to a work environment, to a community. But it is the strengths, the combined strengths and challenges of everyone that ultimately decides what the outcome will be. And so even if I was incredible which I have to be honest, I was not, but let's say I was, and I won every match, if my teammates weren't able to perform to their best, then it didn't matter how great I was when it came to the entire match. And so I think that that's the part that probably stood out to me of, it doesn't matter how good you are on the day if your teammates aren't in the same place. And so how we support each other, even as individuals, is incredibly important to the ultimate outcome.
I love that observation and just the way you described it. It really seemed like, me listening to you, you found this passion or something that sit with you, and you followed your gut on this social impact journey. What I'm hearing is you found an observation that resonated, and that path took you to the next jobs and progressions. Is that accurate?
Absolutely. I think that it's an idea of following a value set of, I don't know exactly where the next step is. I would say that I haven't always been mapping out exactly what my career looks like, but I have always been incredibly intentional about following the values and the impact that I wanted to have on the world. And it has taken me to some incredible places and met incredible people like yourself along the way. I'm always checking against, is this building community? Is this putting good into the world? Is this as equitable as possible? Are people being left out along the way? And saying, these are the types of things I want to be a part of, and these are the types of things that I don't want to be a part of. And so opportunities and new adventures have come along. Doors have opened, I think, because I'm always looking for that. This is what matches my value set. And these are the types of people and projects and initiatives that I want to be around. And along the way, opportunities have come up that have aligned with that. But I think that that's because I've been so intentional about knowing that I wanted to focus on my impact versus necessarily a different type of career path.
Yes. And it's beautiful that it seemed really you had that clarity early on in life and you continue to follow that. It may slightly pivot. Seems like what is the impact you're creating, but that's your guiding principle, so to say. And it seems like you found this new passion, as you mentioned at the end of last year with RecycleBalls. So maybe tell us a little bit about it. What do you do? What does the company do? And what is the problem you're working to solve now?
Absolutely. So every year in the United States alone, 125 million tennis balls get put out into the world, and most of them end up in the trash. They get played for maybe a few hours, or maybe people stretch it out for a few months, and then they're no longer useful. It's the nature of tennis. And so I work for an organization, RecycleBalls. Like I said, they started in 2017 and created a solution for really a scalable solution for recycling tennis balls. And so that looks like partnering with facilities and players to have the tennis balls sent into our warehouse where we look for multiple lives. And so looking across all the tennis balls, sorting them for potentially A balls that come in that could get reused for schools or practices from a tennis standpoint, or other full form uses like to be put on chairs in schools or walkers or as dog toys, and then having a scalable operation that sends those full form tennis balls out to where they can get reused and have a second life. And so instead of those people buying new and creating a second need for recycling, they're buying used. And so we kind of have a 2-for-1 impact there. And then either the balls that are not useful in those ways, or the balls that have come back to us, they have big holes in them because they've been at the bottom of chairs for who knows how long, or community groups have picked them up out of waterways or fields and they've been sitting out in the sun. All of those balls get ground up for what is a third life. And that grind can get used as a lot of different things. One product is a horse footing for arenas, which is a really great use. The fibers help reduce compaction in the ground, which is good for the horses. And then the rubber provides a little bit of extra bounce or cushion for the joints of the horses and a smooth ride for the rider. Or some things that are really exciting are we can separate the rubber from the felt, and we've worked with Lakehold in particular to have that rubber get put back into tennis courts. A variety of different types of tennis courts can use the rubber. And so this idea of a tennis ball that maybe got played for 4 weeks and then would normally go right into the trash now can come back, have a second life as something useful, and then have a third life and get full circle back into the foundation of a tennis court. It's pretty exciting. And the reach that it has, we just hit 10 million tennis balls recycled.
Congratulations.
Thank you so much. It's a big milestone. And we're working towards, instead of 10 million from the beginning of time, 10 million every year. And so that's part of why I joined the organization, was to help grow and scale the impact. Right now, we're in the United States and we have a partnership with an organization in Canada to be able to recycle tennis balls. But right now, we're the only organization that recycles tennis balls in North America at any type of scale. And so it's an exciting place to be, and also a huge amount of responsibility to help grow this nonprofit organization and continue reaching that mission of upcycling and recycling every tennis ball.
You mentioned at the beginning the cyclical economy. You buy something new, but then you continue to use it for other purposes. Mm-hmm. And I want to touch base a little bit on this and the impact or perhaps the harm, because I've played tennis my whole life and never in my mind I thought about recycling balls. And truly, it's almost embarrassing to say, I had thousands, perhaps millions of balls in my life. And I never had that thought as like, oh, what happens to the ball when it's no longer useful? I'm guessing if I didn't have that thought, there's probably many more people like that in this world. So maybe help describe a little bit more of the real problem so people can grasp their head around it and really understand the impact of what happens to the ball or what doesn't happen if they don't recycle it the right way or they're just kind of throw it into a trash or wherever they leave it behind courts.
There's an estimate that in the world, only about 3% of tennis balls even get a second life, much less recycled. That means that hundreds of millions of tennis balls every year worldwide end up in the landfill. And it takes about 400 years for that tennis ball to decompose. And so it's just filling up the landfill. And yet it's made with really usable material. That rubber can be used for so many other uses, and it doesn't have to sit there leaching into the landfill, decomposing over 400 years. They're in the waterways, they're in the natural areas. And so the number of community cleanup groups that are finding tennis balls just out and about and sending them to us is astounding. Just ending up in places that are more harmful than even the landfill. And they don't have to end up in the landfill. You can send them to RecycleBalls either as a tennis facility where we have a quick ship program that is incredibly easy to implement. There's a box that gets set up. Any player can dump that ball into the box, and then it gets shipped to our warehouse. Or individual players can send balls in, can collect balls and send them in as well. I would say that you are not alone, Claire, and not even thinking, I guess, what happens with the tennis ball. And then there are some people who think about it and they want to do something with it. The number of people that said, oh, I have a box of used balls in my closet and are kind of embarrassed about it is astounding, because there isn't a readily definable solution until there was RecycleBalls. The challenge, one of the challenges that RecycleBalls is having as the only recycling option in North America is getting the word out there that there is a really simple and easy solution to be able to recycle those tennis balls, not only once, but multiple times, so that there's that impact of the second life and the third life and coming all the way back around to the tennis courts. Otherwise, they end up in the landfill. They end up in the rivers. They end up at the beaches, slowly decomposing for 400 years.
That statistic was so shocking to me. 400 years for the ball that's just laying there and decomposing. So how could people help? And what do you feel needs to happen next to really help this cause? What do you see would be most helpful for anyone listening, whether they may be at a university, people may be owning a tennis club, or have many connections related to tennis? Hopefully they're getting inspired and understanding the cause. How can they help be part of that solution now and support RecycleBalls on this mission?
There's a variety of ways. One, if you're a tennis player, the easiest thing to do is talk to your facility about, do they have a recycling program for the tennis balls? And if you don't have a recycling program, point them in the direction of RecycleBalls. We can get them all set up, make it incredibly simple for clubs and facilities to have an ongoing kind of white glove recycling service that is incredibly simple to implement. As a player, you can also collect your balls, go to our website, and print out a quick label to be able to send those tennis balls in and actually recycle them. A third way is we are a nonprofit. And so we are focused on figuring out how to obviously be financially sustainable as an organization so that we can go from 10 million tennis balls recycled to 20 to 30 to 100 million tennis balls recycled. And so we're always looking for people who are willing to donate and support the cause financially, in addition to sending in the balls to be recycled. And then lastly is a little bit more of an interesting way is right now in the US, recycled products are something that we're a little bit aware of, but maybe aren't always thinking about how do we buy reused or recycled. And so that's something to keep an eye out and help as well, is where are you in a place that you're able to buy recycled products or reused products so that you're getting those multiple lives that keep a product in use and valuable longer versus the one and done approach of opening up a can of tennis balls, using them one time, and then throwing them away.
Mm-hmm. And I love some of the examples you've given before, using them for chairs in schools. They can be used at pet toys. Obviously, pets, need new balls. What are some of the most creative ways you have seen people using some of the older balls for good instead of trashing them?
Making tennis balls into furniture is one of the great ways that I've seen.
That's really cool. Actually, now I remember some of that. There's some interesting and cool furniture made out of tennis balls. I don't know who came up with it, but yeah, that's a great idea.
There really is. Yeah. There really is. Used in kids' crafts, they turn them into really cute faces that hold things like keys or jewelry. And then obviously the actual ground products turned into tennis shoe soles or back into the tennis courts. Lakehold is incredibly innovative in how they're able to use that recycled rubber and take it from tennis ball to tennis court. I just absolutely love that partnership. And those companies that are kind of on the leading edge of innovating with recycled products, I think that's where we're headed. And so we need nonprofits like RecycleBalls who can help organize and get the collection efforts going and create the recycled products, and companies and individuals who are willing to innovate and be creative in using recycled materials at the same time.
Yeah. What else should we know? Anything I haven't asked you, Erin? What should people be aware of?
I think the biggest thing is being aware of where that impact is, kind of coming full circle in this conversation, if you will, of being really intentional around what are the materials or the products that I'm using, and how can I be intentional about what happens to them afterwards. And so number one is, if you are a tennis player or a tennis facility or someone on their own Grand Slam journey, we are looking for people to partner with us in recycling tennis balls. And so thinking about when you open up that next can, I know what I'm going to do with my balls. I'm going to hold on to them, collect them, and then take those tennis balls and turn them into be recycled.
It seems like some of the biggest drivers could be recruiting more and more country clubs or tennis clubs, because obviously I think those have just huge amount of balls. Now is actually, I say that maybe statistically, there's just many, many more people that play now and then, and who knows what they do with the balls. Is there a specific area you really want to call out to focus on, or help organize perhaps people who may be listening to this in community to then become the proponents of the cause and help work with local facilities to create this bigger impact?
You hit the nail on the head, is that individuals doing one thing is fantastic. Having a facility implement a recycling service or system is going to have far-reaching impact. And one of the things that we've seen is that when a facility has a champion, a member or a staff member or a volunteer or a young person who is willing to support this cause of, there are so many tennis balls that come out, most of them end up in the trash, and we can do something about it. And they're willing to take that to the facility and say, I want to spearhead this. I want to be the champion. I'm going to make sure that the boxes are placed out. I'm going to share why this is important with the staff, with the members. And so a huge number of our facilities are both championed or sponsored by the actual members themselves. It isn't always the facility taking the initiative to say, this is something that we want to do. Very oftentimes, it's the people that play there. And it isn't just private facilities, it's your cities that are taking on this cause as well. And so regardless of where you play, you can absolutely talk to the people, the organization that manages the courts and say, it's important to me that we recycle. And this is a simple, easy solution that makes a real impact in our sports. And sustainability in sports is starting to be better understood. And places like RecycleBalls are stepping up to fill the gap so that our sports can be a lot more sustainable. And each individual person can be a voice and a champion to help make that happen at the facilities where tennis takes place.
I love that example. It seems like whether you're a club, a tennis academy, or an individual, there's a way to take initiative. So if this cause resonates, do something. Don't just sit on it. There's many examples. In fact, my podcast with Titiana Cashiero about power, change typically starts from an individual who then recruits the larger group to be aware of this problem and change their thinking and their habits, which you're the expert in. That's what you have been doing with many other missions. I would think there's a large amount of young humans or humans at any age, but especially I'm thinking the younger demographic, they might be really aware of sustainability and planet, just given, this crazy weather that seems like can't predict anymore what the weather will look like next month. And they don't seem to align with the predictions or the history from the past year. So I think young people are more aware of it because they obviously will have to live on this planet still longer than the older adults. And so I think that could be a fantastic way for anyone who's even younger, take initiative. And just looking at it even from retrospective perspective in business and creating resume for your next career progression, it's a great way to start getting some experience under your belt. And you can communicate that later on when you're looking for next job of having some extra curriculum activity that you can contribute to and drive for the greater good. Obviously, you have a bunch of experience with that, Erin. So maybe circling back, that seems like really what you have done. Any insights you want to share from your life?
It makes a huge difference being able to find something that you can put your effort and your passion to, that you can see the needle move. So when you are young and you have the opportunity to find something that is important to you, like the environment, like helping your sport become more sustainable, and you're building the skills that are going to set you up for the future, the stories that you can tell, the adventures that you can have as a young person to be able to say, I took the initiative to make a change in the world. Not only feels really great, not only helps the environment, but sets you up for success in the long term. You get a chance to learn new things, experience that rush of achievement, and also build that community of other people who care about the same things that you do. Being connected to people who are willing to put themselves out there, to volunteer, to be a champion for a cause and actually take action, it puts you in a whole different stratosphere of young people and really sets up for a lot of positive impact and strong community as you grow and develop into an adult.
I 100% agree with that. On that note, you've been working in many areas of social impact, now sustainability. It's been top of mind for probably everyone, from the United Nations, World Health Organization, really all enterprises, governments seem to be having some sort of initiative and becoming more aware of saving the planet. What is the message you would like to get out to the world? What would you want people to be more aware of, or perhaps inspire listeners to consider going forward?
I might turn that question back around on you. What inspired you to have me on your podcast? This is a little bit different of a topic than you typically talk about. And yet, as soon as we connected and I explained what I was doing, you were like, oh, we could have you on the podcast. And so if I were to answer your question, one of the things that I would say is that as people are becoming more aware, it gives everyone the opportunity to be better, to use their voice to make a change. And I think that you're doing that right now. And so I would ask you in joining me in answering that exact same question of what inspired you to use your platform to share the RecycleBalls message.
Well, I think it's incredibly impactful. I actually do put a lot of thought into who I invite and who are the people that I want to give voice to. I really want to uplift the message of the humans that I think are fabulous, are creating a change, and perhaps listeners haven't heard of as much. And this definitely connects. I just love your story of this passion-driven purpose. You come to me as incredibly authentic human. And ever since we spoke, I was ignorant of the cause. And so I always come from the place, if this is a problem for me, I'm probably not in this alone. There's many more people who don't know about it, aren't aware, and are passionate about the sport, the opportunities that we've received because of the sport and all that we have learned. I think you and I shared that together through our beginnings of tennis. And we also have to think about how we can then take the joy of chasing the yellow tennis balls and think about what happens after that end of life of that tennis balls is over, and not be irresponsible by figuring out how can we actually, in a way, help increase the life of the ball for something that is more useful in really this creating the cyclical economy. You talked about it beautifully, and I hope people give it a little bit more thought. I hope people will take an initiative. I'm definitely way more aware of how I use tennis balls after I'm done with them. I have to say, I haven't thrown one in the trash. I want to make sure either take them to your tennis basket, or I have to say, I will never toss a tennis ball away after our conversation. And so I hope listeners will resonate with this and think about it a little bit deeper and think about creative ways to reuse them, and hopefully send them to RecycleBalls that can reuse it, obviously, in so much more effective and efficient way, and create so many more interesting products and additional business opportunities out of it.
Thank you so much for having me on the podcast. This has been absolute delight. And overarchingly, the idea of impact and voice has resonated kind of throughout this conversation with you, of being really intentional about what your impact is, finding that thing that is meaningful to you. For me, it has been belonging, community, having a positive impact on the world, and then using your voice and your effort and your passion to be able to bring that to life, not only for yourself, but for other people. And it's one of the reasons why I agreed to do the podcast, because what an incredible platform to help share the passion and the ability to be impactful with a bigger audience. And so to your questions, that's what I would say, is that there's a lot of awareness happening right now. And I would encourage everyone to say, how can I be intentional about choosing the impact that I want to have? Because there's so many things that you can align yourself with, and recycling is one of them, but there are many others that may resonate with you. And taking this opportunity to increase awareness and then be intentional about the impact that you want to have. That would be the one thing that I would say listeners could take away from this conversation and the hyper awareness that is happening in the world right now.
I love that and really resonate with that. What you mentioned is find your passion. Recycling balls is obviously a great way. So hopefully that resonates with you. But whatever that is, follow your gut, your instinct, understand your values. And if you're true to those, it seems like they will lead you to the right places and create new experiences, which has been a story of your professional career thus far. So Thank you for that, Erin. Anybody who wants to reach out to you, how should they reach out or how should they reach RecycleBalls? I will add those resources in the show notes, but please, what's the best way to have a conversation?
Please head to recycleballs.org and check out what we do as a nonprofit organization. Help sign up your facility there to be part of the recycling program, or reach out to me or anyone on our team straight from the website at recycleballs.org.
Excellent. I will ensure to add those resources to the notes so people can easily find it. Thank you so much, Erin. It was great speaking with you. I appreciate the time and great conversation.
If you enjoyed this episode, I want to ask you to please do two things that would help me greatly.
One, please consider leaving a review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or any other podcasting platform that you use to listen to this episode. Two, please share this podcast with a friend who you believe might enjoy it as well. It is a great way to remind someone you care about them by sharing a conversation they might be interested in. Thank you for listening.